All right, we're gonna resume here.
Okay. Bruce Lipton. I'll just start talking about that again.
Okay.
Is that cool?
That was wonderful. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because we'll just connect it. So yeah.
Okay. So coming back from that commercial message, started to talk about Bruce Lipton and the biology of belief, and then his newest book, Epigenetics, and he talks about how your attitude and your mind affect your body chemistry and your DNA, and how Dean Ornish, who had written the book Heart Disease Can Be Reversed in the late 70s, early 80s or mid 80s or whatever, he did a study at University of San Francisco Medical Center. 50 guys had cancer, prostate cancer, and so they had them eat a vegan diet. They meditated every day. They did yoga 3 times a week and group therapy. One guy had surgery. One guy opted out, and 48 of them no longer had cancer. But the really unique thing was that the genetic marker that like they test you that says you're going to get cancer was not there, or was switched off after the study. And so, you know, they said, we're not saying that lifestyle can change your DNA, but it certainly implies that. He goes, we have a lot more questions than we have answers, and there certainly needs to be a whole lot more study. And
I wonder if they could do that with breast cancer, because it seems that like that is really prevalent with, you know, women inheriting that. Well,
and you know what? Because of Tony Robbins, nutrition was always a big part of his program, and there's a nutrition, I call him a guru. He's not. He's a microbiologist. His name is Dr. Young, and well, I'll tell you the story. My father had squamous cell carcinoma on his lip. When I was he got this sore when I was going to Florida for NLP training, and my sister stayed with him. And when I came back, she had taken him to the doctor, and they said it was squamous cell carcinoma, could destroy his face, had to cut it out. So they said there's no urgency in the next 2 or 3 months. So my sister lives in San Diego, so she went back home. So I scheduled it for Labor Day weekend so that she could come back and be with him and whatever. So I started putting colloidal silver on the lip. Now, colloidal means the size of the particle is so tiny that it easily can get into your system. Like usually you take colloidal supplements under your tongue, sublingual, and they go right in because the particles are small. So anyway, so we started putting, and this silver is antifungal, antimicrobial, antibacterial, antiviral, anti-everything, right? So I started putting that on his lip, just drops of it. And it was like a little bit helping. And then I got an email from Dr. Young about this doctor in Italy. And he's actually on YouTube, but I don't remember his name, but you can find it. That was curing breast cancer with baking soda.
Oh my gosh.
So I read this article, so I started making a plaster of colloidal silver and baking soda and putting it all over my lip. And I did this like, I'm going to say like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday we go in for the biopsy. Or for the surgery, and it's all pink, fresh skin now. There's no sore. So the doctor looks at it, and he goes, oh my God. He goes, this is only basal cell carcinoma. I thought it was squamous cell carcinoma. He goes, this is much less dangerous. So I told him the story I just told you, and he looks at me like I'm a frickin' Martian. You know, it's like, get out of here. So after the surgery, we're waiting in the lobby. And he comes out and he goes, we did the biopsy, and it was only pre-cancer. And he goes, so that's, so nothing to worry about. Now, I have another friend who's a physician who says that pre-cancer is a code word for it's not cancer. But insurance pays for pre-cancer.
Wow.
And they don't pay if they cut you and there's no reason.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, from the most virulent form of skin cancer to nothing in a week.
That's amazing.
And so, yeah. And again, I'm not saying that this works all the time or what happened, but it's certainly worth studying.
Right. And worth, instead of doing surgery and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, back to hypnotherapy. Do you work on children?
I've worked with a couple children, and not enough that I'd say I'm good at it. And a couple of the mistakes I've made, actually I was speaking to somebody right as you were coming in, and her daughter's a college freshman, so she's not
like
a child,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But I sometimes when family members, and I'm not going to even say just children, when family members are there, they want to help, and it's like if I was working with you on something, I need to know what your process is.
So they would say,
and the family member would say, well, you know, I remember thinking about my Uncle John's funeral, and they go, oh no, that wasn't it. It was, remember it was, and they're like telling them what they're thinking, right? It's like, you know what's in your mind. You're, you know,
why would they be, if she's of age, why would they be in there with her?
Well, so I that's something I learned though. I worked with a young kid that had ADHD, and, or the teachers thought he had ADHD, and it wasn't as good as I would have liked it to been. I mean, the work we didn't get the results I hoped for. But in retrospect, I would have done it without the mom being there. She was there all the time, and live and learn, right? It was right when I first started practicing. He was in high school, sophomore, freshman, something. Yeah. But they said he had ADHD, but he was an amazing cook and had all these recipes memorized. And he knew every word to every song on the radio. So like, how could he learn all these songs and memorize all these recipes if he can't
concentrate long enough to?
Yeah, and so you
never worked with really like
no,
6, 7.
No, I've not, and it can work, but I've just not.
Right. I wonder, like, if you got the permission from the parent, you know, to have that child alone, or they might be out in the hallway. You know, that would depend on each parent, right? I mean,
and actually, like, part of our training when I got my practitioner, and this is actually the story I was telling the lady on the phone, when I got my practitioner, we're supposed to do 100 creativity elicitations. That means you find somebody that's artistic, and you learn what is their process for creating. And so, and the idea, part of like the way NLP first got started was that, you know, you find somebody that like has a great internal process for picking stocks, for example. And once you learn their process, you can teach it to other people so that they could pick stocks the same way.
Yeah.
Right? How do you decide when it's a good stock? Well, you know, what's the process? And so, you know, how do you create a picture? Well, I start sitting there and I'm thinking of ideas, and then I start writing down just single words, and then one of the words, I'll write a word, and then all of a sudden I see an image in my mind, and then you know, and I did another strategy. But so my point was that I was doing it with a friend of mine who was an artist, and we were doing it at her house, and I'm doing the process, and her husband's going, oh, well, you do this. Oh, well, you do that. And she'd go, you know, he would say something, she'd go, oh yeah, and he's like polluting what we're trying to do. And so now it's like, if I'm going to work with somebody, they're in my office, and that's it.
It's going to be one person.
It's just better for them, you know.
Okay, so you said in the fall you get a lot of allergies. You got some weight loss. What are there? I'm just curious. Are there?
And I've had 3 vertigos like recently.
Oh really?
So it just seems for whatever reason. I mean, maybe it's just my imagination, but it seems like, you know, they just like come in clusters. And you know, business-wise, the most effective way to succeed in business is to pick one small niche and just do a lot of that. But because, you know, I've only been doing this like with clients since '08, I haven't decided what I really like. I like kind of doing new things, and it's like I'd rather have somebody come in with something bizarre that I've never dealt with,
right,
than just do the same thing over and over. So eventually I will do that, you know, because it makes business sense to say, okay, I'm only going to work with smokers, or I'm only going to work with allergies, or, you know, I'm only going to work with PTSD, or I'm only going to work with...
oh, you do PTSD?
You know, it's a tricky thing. It's like, sometimes it's effective, and I have a friend...
Do you get like veterans and stuff?
Sometimes. I have a friend that's in Florida, and she was a classmate of mine, and she had PTSD. She had lived in Manhattan and stuff happened. And... so, you know, she got into it to heal herself, and now does a lot of work with a lot of people. And what was I going to say? But it's a slippery slope because, you know, if somebody's working with a therapist or a counselor or whatever, then I don't really want to get into interfere with that, right? And it can. So, but you know, if somebody comes up to me and you know, has an issue, then yeah, I'll work with them. And it's actually, I have a really good friend that's PhD in psychology, PhD in neuroscience, and he's a classmate of mine, and he does NLP with a lot of veterans.
Wow.
For PTSD. And he says it works really well, but he's not allowed to use NLP because it's not an approved.
Wow.
Right? The government says these are the things you're allowed to use. So he'll work with them, and then he'll say, I used guided imagery and I used cognitive therapy, and like has to make up stuff because even though it works, they're just not allowed to use it because
that's too bad, because I've heard that in the military that there's a lot of like overdose and overusage of pharmaceuticals, and it's just they're pretty much in a haze because they're just drugged.
Right. Well, and the Marines particularly. And I have a good friend from the Journey. He was a Marine, and he had, I guess you would call it PTSD from, the Marines. Nobody gets left behind, and people got left behind. So he had really guilt from that. He was a sergeant, and then he ran 2 floors of the World Trade Center, an investment bank or something. He was a manager or something. And he took September 11th off. And all of his guys got killed, all of his employees. And he had so much guilt of, I should have been there. I should have gone with him, or I should have got him out of there.
Yeah.
And so that's what led him into this. And so he specializes with veterans.
Wow.
But particularly Vietnam, because that's his era, but, all veterans. And
wow. Any other examples, or is that pretty much the gamut? Like, weight, smoking?
Well, I've got a menu of stuff if you really want me to dig that out. But, like one of the things that's...
I'm just curious who all would utilize hypnotherapy.
Anger issues, and motivation. I'm trying to think of what else. I'm going to be rude and dig out my brochure and just run through the. Okay, agoraphobia, nail biting, any kind of phobias. Phobias are really easy. Anger management, bedwetting, procrastination, regression, distress, test anxiety, fear, self-esteem issues, grief, sex issues, guided imagery, peaceful sleep, performing arts, motivation, public speaking, salesmanship, self-confidence, focused attention, stress management, study skills, learning skills, memory, allergies, PTSD, childbirth issues, chronic pain, dental procedures, smoking, headaches, blood pressure, stuttering, medical procedures, weight loss, and exercise. Yeah. Now, with the medical procedures...
What's exercise, like motivating you to exercise?
A lot of times, yeah.
Yeah.
But with medical procedures, too, a lot of times, in science, like, there are 2 schools in medicine. The one school believes that the mind is integral to health and healing. And the other school believes that you're just a machine and we just need to put the right kind of fuel in it and it'll run at an optimal level. And whether you believe you're going to get better or not totally is irrelevant.
Yeah.
And those 2 schools fight back and forth continuously, and the media spurs them on. So anyway, the one school that believes that your attitude is integral to healing, we work hand in hand with. So if somebody's going to have surgery, we help them to develop beliefs that they're going to get better. We help them to feel good about going into it. You can put post-hypnotic suggestions, into the process so that, you're going to, and after this surgery, you're going to heal easily, effortlessly, without doing anything. Just naturally, all your body parts are going to work together and come together, and the healing process is going to be easy, and before you know it, you'll be back up, and that kind of thing, too, so that, after surgery is better. And absolutely, this is not a replacement for medicine or psychiatry or psychology or counseling. And anybody that thinks it is, but we can work really good with those people and fill in spots where they. Right.
Yeah. I believe that would help. Yeah. Have you ever seen that movie? I have a stupid thing, and I always forget, the Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind or whatever. But basically, what it is this couple get together, and they're on and off relationship, and it doesn't go well. And she decides to go somewhere where she has all her memories erased of this person. And honestly, I was like really curious about, like, would you ever be able to like try to erase certain memory? Like I don't know if that's like PTSD too. If you erase actual memories that are bad memories, or
well, you know what? There's a process. First of all, most of your memories are memories is very malleable, changeable, right? And so, for example, like one of the processes, a couple of the processes I use. For example, if somebody wants to work on being free from tobacco, right? We do something called timeline therapy. And so we have them, okay, camera, can you put the camera on you for a second?
Okay.
And I'm not going to hypnotize you. Okay.
All right, what is that noise?
It's a crackling wet candle.
Can I possibly blow that out?
Sure. Yeah, the other two don't make noise.
Alright.
Good job.
That's driving me crazy.
Right.
Alright.
And good.
Alright, let me see. That's right where my chair is, so that would be okay. Alright.
You want me to sit there for a second just to make sure that you're framed?
You could just pop over and
Okay.
then if you want to just look.
Okay.
I think I'm in it. I don't know. I can bring it back.
Doesn't this flip over so you can see?
No, I don't think so, but...
It's cutting your head off.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the square is, it's like you're from here.
Well, I can raise it up.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, just about, I don't know, an inch or so.
Okay.
Is this recording while you're doing it?
Yeah, but I can. Yeah, that was my one of the things that I was gonna do was do like this, which I still may consider. I don't know, this whole non-editing thing. But I might.
Well, it depends.
I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Well, you know, it depends on how. Like I'm wordy, right? I can talk for 2 hours, and probably most of that's not wordy.
I think I'd be good.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay. So now, close your eyes.
Okay.
Okay. And the important thing is.
I shouldn't have had coffee.
Okay.
No, just kidding.
The first thing, it's decaf.
Oh, I know. Still,
Okay.
there's still a little bit of a buzz. Yeah. Okay.
The first thing that comes into your mind, I want you to just respond. Point to your past. Where's your past?
Oh, where
Yeah.
exactly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Where's the past? Okay, perfect.
Okay.
So she pointed over her left shoulder for those of you in Louisville. Okay. Now, point to the future.
Okay.
Where's the future? Perfect. And where's the present? Perfect. That's exactly it. Now,
should I keep my eyes
you can
closed?
open your eyes now. 90% of the people in the country, or a large percentage of the people in the world, in fact, the past is over their left shoulder and the future is up to the right. Now that's called being in time, because the timeline runs through your body, right?
Okay.
This is the present here, future's in front of me, past is behind me.
Okay.
Which is where terms like putting it behind you come from. So when people said, I put it behind me, unconsciously, that's really what they did. They took the event, the picture, right, the memory, and they put it where they don't have to see it anymore.
Okay.
So, and like psychologists were missing that. People were telling them what's going on, and they were missing it. It's like I just got over it. Sometimes it was like there, and they stepped over. Somebody says, I feel like I've got the world on my shoulders. And you have them go like this, and they go, oh my God, that feels so much better.
Would that be bringing stuff from the past into
No, not necessarily, no. But well, could be. But you know what, actually what that process, when somebody says I feel overwhelmed and I feel like the world is on my shoulders, overwhelmed is another key word for that same thing. You have them reach back and grab it and put it in front of them. And you say, okay, close your eyes and imagine it's in front of you, all these problems or whatever this issue is. And then float above it and look down on it. And then float to the other side and look at it toward where you're at. And then look at it from the left and look at it from the right, and then float under it and look up at it from the bottom so that you can see it from every perspective. And just looking at it differently changes the way they feel about it. And back to the timeline though. Now that's called in time because the timeline runs through you. The other way that people deal with time, and it kind of works hand in hand, is called through time. And through time is where if you took your timeline and you switched it this way, so that your past is on your left side and your future's on your right side, but like laid out like one event after another. Men tend to be, well, okay, it used to be when they first, yeah, you can turn this back on you. Yeah. It used to be when, you know, in the 70s when they were developing this, that women to a large extent were stay-at-home moms, and men were out, you know, working or whatever. And now it's not as cut and dried because women that work in, you know, in private industry and whatever deal with life similar to the way men do. But although women still tend to be more in the moment than men do.
Well, explain that again.
Okay.
The difference between men and women is.
Okay, so well, men tend to be through time more often, which is they say I've got to do this, and then I've got to do this. I've got to do this at 9 o'clock, and then this is 10 o'clock, and then 11 o'clock I got to do this. Then from 12 to 2 I'm going to have lunch and drink martinis, and then I got to do this, and then I'm going to go to the gym, and I'm going to do that. You know what? I'm not going to go to the gym today. I'll do that tomorrow. And they have it all lined out in front of them.
Okay.
And the past goes that way too. Whereas when it's through time, right, where it runs through you, this is what I got to do now, and then this is what I got to do now. And so, you know, the men always used to joke that women are never on time, but it's because they're present in the moment.
So women, it's more in front of them as opposed to horizontally like across.
Yes,
okay.
right. And like I say, now it's not as cut and dried because women are you know, in working and whatever, they have to deal with time both ways.
Yeah.
But women still tend to be, I mean, that's, you know, because they're more sensitive and emotional, they're in the moment, you know, so it's like with a lot of times with women, whatever they're dealing with at this instant is the most important thing in the world to them. Whereas guys, like, they're dealing with it and they're saying, but I got to leave in a half an hour and then I got to do this. And so it's like, because it's in front of them, because it's laid out that way. So, for example, I worked with a guy, sort of a local notable figure that went to jail, did something wrong, went to prison. But when I said, where's your past? He said, right here. And I said, where's your future? And he said, right here. And I said, so they're both next to each other. And he says, yeah, both of them are next to each other right in front of me. So that means for everything he goes to do, he sees every mistake he's ever made right in front of him. So I said, reach up with your left hand and grab your past. And I said, and pull it behind your back. And he goes, oh my God.
While he was kind of under, he did that?
You don't have to be under to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just do it. But so anyway, so what we do with timeline therapy, which was like, this was a long way to go to get to this, but is have you close your eyes and say we're working with somebody that smoked. And we have them float up above their timeline and float back to the first cigarette.
Wow.
And so we get to the first cigarette and we say, okay, watch yourself like on a movie screen having your first cigarette. And then we say, now, what resources, if you had had them at that time, would have stopped you from having that first cigarette? This is called change personal history. So, you know, the person says, well, and then we'll give them resources. So we'll say, you know, what if you had more confidence and more self-esteem and more self-love, and you had more love from your parents, or you had the ability to say no, or the ability to whatever, and so depending on the situation. And the way we do it actually is we have a mentor with them. You know, it could be somebody they respect, it could be spiritual, whoever they bring to the table. And so we have the mentor give them balloons full of all these qualities, and they breathe them in.
Wow.
Then we say, okay, go back up on the movie screen and see how it would have played out different if you had had all these resources. And you changed their memory.
Wow.
And so if they never took this first cigarette, between there and now, all kind of stuff shifts.
Wow.
And so
you know, when you're talking about the difference between men and women with the timelines, I always thought it was interesting that they said within the first hour of birth that if a male baby, it pretty much is 50% whether it's going to look at an object or a human face, where a female baby will choose the female every time.
Wow.
Like, it's just, you know, and that just blows my mind. Like, when I think about that there's that much difference.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know, because I tend to think, oh, well, there isn't that much difference between men and women. We're all the same and stuff, but there really is. You know, on a level, like when you hear something like that.
Right,
you know,
right.
That's interesting.
And yeah. I've never heard that, but that's interesting. You know what's interesting too? Like, in fact, in my abnormal psych class, we heard this theory, which kind of made sense to me. That they said, when an infant, you know, cries because they want food, and they get comforted, and then they cry because they want comfort and they get fed, they confuse food with comfort.
Yeah. And
so from that, as they grow up, those tend to be people that have eating issues. And actually, I mentioned that to one of Tony Robbins' people, and they now use that in their nutrition seminars at the Tony Robbins events. But it just made sense to me that, because like the parent, like you really don't know when the baby cries. You stick a bottle in its mouth, or you give them a binky and hold them, or what do they want?
Oh my God.
But if they're getting comfort when they want food and food when they want comfort, food and comfort become synonymous.
Oh my God! Now I'm like, I'm
You're ready
freaking out. I'm like,
McDonald's is right over here.
No, I'm more thinking, oh my God, my kids are gonna either be like fat, or they're gonna have like emotional like issues, because like I was sleep deprived and they were colicky, and I was just like, I have no idea what's going on. Yeah. All right. Well, it has been a pleasure talking to you, and thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
For this. Oh, good. Yeah, we totally see. That's why I love the option. It's really, I'm gonna have to.
You're gonna